Click the bell icon to get latest videos from Ekeeda.
Hello friends, today we will talk about the issues that we face while designing with an entity relationship diagram or ERD. Now when we are considering an ERD, we should face the issues in many of the cases described as the relationship as the entity sets as the attributes, the placements of the attributes, the cardinality of the attributes and all. So we will discuss these issues in details and how to get the best possible result of this one. The ERD has many issues as it uses a simpler and clear idea about the logical view of the database. Now when use the two words simpler and clear, then we cannot say precisely the exact function of many of the entities, or the functions could be generalized and specialized on some basis which we cannot show in the ERD. So the first issue that we will solve is the entity set versus the actual attributes on the ERD. So when we place an entity set as a set of the attributes, or we can say that the attribute has got itself the attributes as a complex attribute. So we often represent a complex attribute as a separate relation, and the relation or the entity has a relationship with the primary entity. So in this way we can define, and the ambiguity can arise that if the attribute it's a relation or an entity, or is it is a part of the attribute or the relation. So let us look at an example and then see that what are the issues that we can solve. So here it is specifying that the relation or entity instructor has an entity set that has got ID, name and phone number in it. So when I am talking about this, I can face the first issue that a phone number itself can be a part of an entity or an attribute that has got two parts, that a phone number or the location. Say for every person has got many or at least two of the phone numbers or the contact numbers, one for the home, another for the office. So what is the location of the phone number and then the phone number associated with it. So we can represent this one as a separate entity, and then we can link with the instructor relation as the relationship instructor phone. Let us look at how to do this one. Now we can see that I am defining a separate entity phone. I have made it a slightly different edge or the slanted edge as to define that it has got an issue with the problem in ERD. So when I am saying that this one as a phone number or the location as a combination to the relation or entity phone, and it is related with the instructor entity with an instructor phone or inst phone relationship. So what are the issues that we face now? That we got a phone that can be attached as a multi-value in this phone number of the instructor relation, as well as we are using a keyword that is generally we can use is as an attribute name to another relation or entity. Now the same name has got the attribute or as the entity can be confusing and can malfunctioning result to the ERD. So this is the first type of issue that we face while designing an ERD, that where to place an entity or where to place a multi-valued attribute as a part of the entity. Well, there is no best answer for this. Actually, the requirement is based upon what are the ERD that we are designing. If it is more detailed on the contact number basis, say for an customer care which deals with more the contact numbers of a person, so then for we can use the phone as a separate entity. Otherwise we could have put it as a multi-valued attribute inside an instructor relation if it is considered on less important while designing the ERD. So it is basically the need or the demand of the designing enterprise which is using the particular attribute or an entity definition. So there is no way to actually define the concrete rule for having an entity or an attribute. The next way is to have the entity as the relationship. So what are the relationship and entity confusion or problem that we can face in an ERD that we'll show now. So it is not always clear that we can represent a function or an object as an entity or a relationship set in an ERD. Say for example, the text relationship inside an university, that is a course has taken a student. Now it has that the text relationship could be implied in three of the ways. That the text could be a registration to the course or a registration to the student. So we now have to clearly say that the course has been registered to the department or the student has been registered to the course. So we cannot just use the text relationship here. So the text relationship can be replaced by the fields. So I am defining three entity sets for only one relationship, that is text. So now text is divided into registration entity set, section registration, that means the section or the course has been registered with this section. And then the student registration, that the course has been registered with this student. So now the course section course students has separated from this registration entity set, which can be an implications of the text relationship that can happen directly between a student and a course. Now how to represent it in an ERD? See now here the registration entity set has a total representment or this requirement with the section registration and student registration relationships, and now this one is related with the section entity set as well as in the student entity set. So now the question arises that what is the way to decide that either use the text relationship between a student and a course or use the registration as an intermediate entity set to represent the text relationship into two parts, that is section registration and student registration. Well, the answer is text is more compact because it represents that a student has taken a course. Whether a student can belong to a section or a course can be registered with the section, the main idea is a student has taken a course in a particular department. So, but if the registration field or the entity set has got some important characters or information, say for where the administrative building is located or who are the registrar to the registration office, then it is better to use the entity set other than using a relationship to the entity set. So this is also an issue that we can solve ERD but not in a concrete way. Now let's move to the next our portions, that is a binary versus in-array or more than one binary relationship. As we know, there can exist in an ERD a binary relationship as well as more than one binary relationship. So when we talk about more than one binary relationship, that means a relationship is joined with more than two entity sets. Now, when I am considering more than two entity sets, then we can say that the entity sets that we are having can have the relationship directly matched with other entity sets. Like say the student and the instructor, if the relationship is being a project guide, so we can add simply another instruction or the entity set project to the relation. So it will make that the instructor is a part or has got a relationship with the project, as well as the student has got the relationship with the project. So it is very compact to use a relationship which will show the generalized way to relate more than two entity sets. But we can do it in a ternary relationship just like this way. But if I can define this like this one, now here we can see that we are having the relationship R as the derived one with an entity set E that is linked with an entity A with RA relation, with the B as an RB relation, and the C as an RC relation. So now what is the issue? That we are representing a ternary or an n-ary relationship with the binary relationships. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of having a binary relationship as a combination of the ternary relationship? So if I can join two relationships as a binary, that is the basic relationship holding in an ERD, then it is always easy to eliminate that relationship and add a new relationship to the particular designing. Now say if we are having that the RA, RB and RC, which is completely null, that we are having the relationship with A, B and C. That means that is a compact and easy relation project guide that we can relate with the instructor, project and as well as the student relationship. So what is the need of having another entity set to have the relation with instructor, student and project? Now, being a project guide, the instructor can teach the project or help the project to being a part of the student. So in this way, we can only use subternary relation as a combination of the binary relationship. But the issue here that when we will choose the ternary one and when we will choose the binary one. If I choose the combination of binary ones, then the main problem arises that why cannot we use the ternary relationship that is more compact? If we can restrict our ERD to have only binary relationship, that can be a problem solving to this issue, that no ternary or more than one binary in the relationship holding of an ERD. But again a problem arises that when we can use a ternary relationship as a compact way, then having the binary relationships is an extra overhead to the ERD. So the extra overhead will require memory, will require another attribute sets to the entity, may require all the common attributes to that particular relationship. Say for the RA, RB and RC can have A, B and C, which are very common, like the project name, they will all have. So I want to have another project name on the project guide relationship or the entity. Now the third and the most important way is that we cannot represent some constraints that are placed on a ternary relationship and cannot be placed on a single combination of binary relationship. Say for an example that an instructor can be a project guide to many the student, but the student cannot have more than one instructor. So if the student project and student instructor has been related with this RA, RB and RC as three different binary relations, then we cannot just give the constraint of one to many from an instructor to a student, because there can be that an instructor to both the students, or a student can have an only instructor, or a single project that has been assigned to a student has got also one instructor. So they are actually one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many relations that we cannot have just put into single relation in a ternary one. So that are the issues that we face while placing a ternary one as a combination of the binary relationships. Now, the next important part is the placement of the attributes in a particular entity set. For that, let us look at an example first. Say for our previous example that can define that instructor Jones can be an instructor or a project guide of two students Henry and Phillips, but it cannot define the constraint that an instructor is a project A joined with Phillips and a project B joins with Henry. So this can only be defined with an original of the combination of binary relationship, not just having a ternary relationship. Now let's look at these relations. First is the instructor relation and next is the student relation. And the relationship that lies between them is, so an instructor can be the advisor of a student, and any instructor can be any advisor to the students. That has got, the instructor has got an one-to-many relationship. That is, one instructor can be an advisor of many students, and the constraint is the instructor become an advisor on a particular date. That means when the student is get joined to the instructor, so then it will be an advisor state on that instructor. Now the placement of attributes in that particular relationship. So how to place it? If I was using only the ID name, not this join relation or the join date relation on that student, so it has got no problem that every instructor can have one student or more than one student. Now I have added date or join date to the advisor relationship. So what is the problem here? That the constraint is the instructor can be an advisor on a particular date or when a student has joined him. Now for cats, Peter and Henry are both being used the cats as an instructor or the advisor. But Peter has joined on 2010, Henry has joined on 29. So when the cats instructor will be an advisor on June 29 or June 2010. So this type of problem arises when there exists a one-to-many relationship inside an ERD which have as an attribute that as being a constraint to the relationship. So if the relationship is specified with a constraint, then we must satisfy a particular portion to help this one, because other than this it could be created a problem that June 2010 or June 29 that cats become an advisor. So in the advisor relationship that is stored in the database, it will create an ambiguity or confusion that will make an erroneous database other than using the positive database. So now for example, to help this one, we can use that either an attribute has been added to a relationship separately, not just by added to the entity that is being a many-to-one relationship with another entity set. And the second way to possibly correct it has to use a many-to-many relation to have this one. because if there are many instructors that can teach many students, so the instructor can be the advisor to one student at one time and another student at another time. So it is best way to possibly attach the attribute name that is created as a constraint to the relationship as a separate one, not just by using it in the same way on the attaching it with the entity. So these are the ERD issues that we face while designing the database. Thank you for watching this video. Stay tuned with Ekeeda and subscribe to Ekeeda.